Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back. Welcome back, man. It's been a long time. You know, we shouldn't have left you, but we needed some peace, actually. we, we were resting and having some peace, but it's good to be back, man. It's good to be back, especially being back with our guest as always, Dr. Ham. So appreciate everybody tuning in. That's going to tune in. We appreciate y'all, man. What's up? What's going on, JY? What's up, Dr. Ham?
And good to be back, bro. Good to be back, man. Like I said, I always think it's the right time anytime we get together, man. So, it's always the right time, and such a time as this. We like to exchange ideas, and sometimes we get to a point where we need some extra steps. And I always like how we provide an analysis, that can be constructive, and I think that we need that in this hour more than ever.
Yeah,
absolutely. I totally agree, man. This is a moment in the time, in this period of time, that we have to really get honest and real about the conversations that should have been had, need to be had, and will be had.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And with that, man, we just not gonna waste any time, man. We're just gonna get into it. Of course, the topic, the title of this is Politics is War. You know what I mean? And one thing that we constantly always talked about was, politics is about life or death. That's what it is. People are seeing that now, right? People are seeing that with what's going on in Gaza, what's happening in Iran, what's happening when you have people who are paid by the government to, go into little kids, recitals and take them away from their parents, and I mean, the list is going on. It's chaos right now, but yeah, Doc. So we're gonna let you go ahead and kick it off there.
No, man. This is our third installment. I want to point that out. I like to always think that there are people who are reactionary, and there are people who are precautionary. And see, we are not new to this subject. We've been talking about this for years. We saw what was coming. We spoke about it, and we got receipts. Everybody could talk, in the minute, in the moment. We got receipts. We got, bank receipts from big banks, because what I see happening, and it's an evolutionary thing as opposed to a political thing. And as we start, just to kind of recap the essence of our discussion and give it some historical foundation, the word politic, or the politiki, or the polit is the citizen. So you are the politic. In its rarest sense, in its most small sense, you are a state. John is a state, Tay is a state, and Ham is a state. Now we form 3 states, correct?
Yeah.
In order for Ham to go into John's state, what does he need?
You need resources. You need
so if I want to travel to another country, what document do I need to have?
You need your passport.
Your passport. So I want to go to another state. John, can I enter into your state, please?
I will give you permission to enter in my state.
Thank you, John. Tay, can I enter into your state?
Yeah, I give you permission to enter into my state.
Thank you, John. Now that I'm in your state, you might have some rules there, correct?
Yeah.
In the state of John, there may be some rules, but the rules may be different in the state of Tay, correct? But when Ham comes into your state, Ham must come with his hands where? In his pockets or hands up?
Hey, come with them hands up, man.
Why? Yeah. Why should I enter into your state with my hands up?
You gotta make sure you're safe.
Right? Because you could be holding a weapon. So when I enter into your politic, your nation, in order to form cohesion, our 3 states have to form 1 state, correct? In order for our 3 states to form 1 state, then we have to we'll change the names. So I like to give people words they can know, right? So Ham is a king, John is a king, and Tay is a king, right? So together we are 3 kings, right?
Yeah.
3 kingdoms. So 3 states, right? Because we are 3 states, in order to come together, when states come together, what do they normally have as an agreement between them? What do they usually call it? Like a treaty or?
Treaty.
a treaty or an agreement,
Yeah.
something unilateral. So
Mhm.
like, we have some rules so that when I'm in your state, I behave a certain way.
Mhm.
Now, when some people come into your state, they have immunity, right? I mean, they could commit a crime in your state, and you can't prosecute them.
Mhm.
Now, do you know who those people are?
No,
Who was the only person that could commit a crime in your state and you would forgive it?
Oh, that's least.
Well, no. I mean, so the reason I'm saying there are no wrong answers.
Oh, I got
I'm asking these questions so we can frame the politics as war, so we understand it at the fundamental level first.
Mhm.
Because if you don't see yourself as a country and as a state, you'll let anybody enter without permission, and then they will do damage to your state. So, for example, I'll ask a question, and once again, there are no wrong answers. Where's the most valuable piece of real estate located?
usually in inner city or coastline.
Okay, so you're thinking natural, you're thinking physical places.
Yeah.
Now let's add all places to it, not just natural.
Okay.
your mind.
Yes, but more specific, yes, your mind is a very valuable piece of estate. It's a real estate in there, right? It's property. So if something's on your mind, they're taking up time in your state. Now, I would argue with you all that the most valuable real estate in the world is heaven. It's the most valuable real estate because everybody wants to go there, right? And so what has happened is when it comes to your state, you have to do what's called a cost-benefit analysis. And I give this reference because my thought process in today's world, people don't see themselves as a state. They see them as a part of a state. You're a part of a state. And because you're a part of a state, what the state does, you are associated with it by default. So if the U.S. does something, because I'm under its state, I can fall under its authority and its provisions, etc. And there's times when people want to separate from their state. They want divorce. They want to say, hey, John, I don't like it in your space anymore. I would like to leave your space. Now, what could you say to me if you didn't want me to go?
If I didn't want you to go, I would have to sit down and negotiate so you don't go.
Now, what if I tell you that there's nothing we can negotiate and you still don't want me to go?
Then I would, depending on my psychological leaning, which I'm saying, either I'm going to dive more into being an authoritarian and force you to stay.
That's it. Now we it.
Yeah.
Yes. And we're seeing this unfold today. We're seeing it unfold. And so as we go in and conceptualize this conversation, I just want to frame it from this perspective of why we're seeing so much division in our state, mental states, in our hyper normalization of what's happening, because what's happening is there's a war happening. There's a war going on. And that war starts inside of us first, in our state. Because if your own state isn't good, then the war outside of you won't even matter. Because you have already said, I've given up my authority or my statehood because it's too much responsibility to be a state of myself. Because I can't exist without you. So I need John, I need Tay in our community, because ultimately there might be times where my state is getting low on resources. And I'm like, hey, Tay, hey, can you help me out for something for a little bit to get me by next week? You know? And he said, I got you, man. Because you know what? Last month, when my state was down, you gave me some encouragement and you gave me some, some food or something. We have a dependency on each other. And one of the biggest things that we was always created from the mind to today is the idea that you are a state. You're an entity. You are an institution. And you align yourselves with those through political parties, through bigger states. And that creates that politic that we're seeing today. And I just want to recap that idea because we did kind of talk about that in our earlier episodes for those who didn't catch it.
So Dr. Ham, using like your analogy, right? Would you say that's also conscious freedom, right?
Yes.
Because if you're not allowing yourself to intellectually think about processes in society and polite society and so forth, if you're not allowing yourself to think about all of this stuff and you're relinquishing yourself to uh you know uh repeating what you have heard from, whether it's the news or whether you read it
Yep.
in from a um journalist or the president, or but you didn't allow yourself to deeply think about how would you conduct yourself in that process,
Mm.
using the narrative, right?
Yes.
Isn't that also the thing that we're talking about, is the freedom,
Oh, yes.
the freedom here.
Oh, it has to be there.
Yeah.
Because if there's no freedom here, then what you're only going to see is altered states. Meaning, every time I enter a location, I want agreement where I go. Right.
Mhm.
So we'll start off at the smallest level, is your state, right? And then the next state is your home.
Mm.
That's a state as well. Your home is a state. It
Mhm.
functions as a politic. There's
Mhm.
people there and there's order. There's things that happen there. So once your home is good, then it's your neighborhood, your community. Because
Mhm.
at each state that you go through in freedom, if there's no freedom here, then there's no freedom at the next stage. It's
Mhm.
it's evolutionary. And I think that what we're seeing happening is people who are being able to think not just this idea that politics is war, but the idea that all politics is local.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
If a civil war happens in America, like some people are projecting, it will be a local war.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It'd be local first. And so what happens is that there might be parts of the country where there's no fighting
Mhm.
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 because their state there is in harmony.
Mhm.
Even
Yeah.
though chaos is around that state,
Mhm.
because you could be in an office environment where everybody's chaotic, but you just chilling.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
not entered into their state of chaos and confusion. You brought your own state of peace with you. So you're
Mhm.
not looking for anybody else to provide it for you. So I just wanted to clarify that real quick.
So we're gonna plug on it because we got our first comment, right? And the first comment is, and we're doing this in real time. Like, does and they're asking, Drew is asking, does Black lives really matter? Asking he's asking as a Black man, right? And it really ties into what we were already talking about, right? To even ask that as a Black man, he hasn't even consciously went to war with himself to understand that he matters.
Right. Yeah. Why would you ask that? Yeah.
Yeah, why would you ask? But because someone else said he didn't matter, all lives matter, he is buying into someone else's consciousness.
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, because
And again, literally what we're talking about, he hasn't dealt with the politics of self.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Politics of self. Hey, I'm gonna write that down.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, I knew John was gonna drop a jewel tonight. I knew I was gonna get a jewel from John tonight. Get some
Yeah,
paper, write this down. Hold up. I'll write this down.
It's
Politics of self.
politics of self, man.
Yeah.
Because if you like you were explaining, Tay was talking about, right? You hear these questions that's being put out in the world, right? But the first person that has to answer those questions is always you.
Got to.
Mhm.
It's always you.
Has to be.
Because if you allow someone else to create the answer, you just live under their power.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know, Doc, and you know, on this thing of politics is war. One of the things that we saw was during the election. You know what I'm saying? We saw people go into camps, and you know, just keep it in a buck. There were people, certain racial and ethnic groups. I'm gonna stick to ethnic groups, right? Because when I say racial, I mainly talking about white people and white folks and Spanish speaking people who identify as white, and also some East Asians who identify as white as well. But so I'm gonna just stick to ethnic groups, right? During the campaign, you had people who chose to go into their own camps, you know what I mean, for their own war, right? We saw people who had this crazy idea that if we go out here, let's say the Arab population or the Muslim population in Dearborn, Michigan, right, who chose, you know what I mean, put out statements and said that we're gonna go with Donald Trump, you know what I mean, because he's gonna be the best for our community and our people. But look what's happening. The same thing was happening when you look at the different ethnic groups when we're talking Spanish folks, right? Particularly the men in these different Spanish groups, the Cubans, the Venezuelans, some Haitians, you know what I mean? They went and voted for this man. And now this man, and when you say politics is war, again, this is an administration that took away people's legal status in order to turn them into illegals, to deport them. And the whole time you saying you ain't gonna vote for you didn't want to vote for the black woman. You know what I'm saying? And it is, so my question would be, or is, you know what I'm saying, when we talking about, politics and war, you know what I mean? How do we break it down?
To your point, the first casualty in any war is the truth. Agreed?
Yes.
In order to go, I need the lie distortion. The first lie, the first casualty, the first thing that dies is the truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
And because the truth dies first, all that is left is the lie. But all warfare is based upon deception. Correct? That's Sun Tzu. That's Art of War. That's 3,500 years of doctrine. All warfare is based on deception. And if politics of self is correct, then the person who asked that question deceived themselves. They deceived themselves. No one deceived you but you. You deceived you, not the devil, not your mama. You became the devil and deceived yourself if you need that framework. The thing is that my concern isn't anyone's self-deception. My concern is you're trying to control or constrict the argument. We're talking about politics as war, not if anybody's lives matter. That's a distraction and a distortion. We're talking about politics as war, and that is what we're going to be talking about. Warfare. And if you don't want to talk about warfare, this ain't the podcast for you. Warfare now. We're in war talk. When you're in the war council, there's two people that can't be in war council. Cowards have to go, and liars. I can't have a coward or a liar. I can disagree with you, and honestly, but if you're a coward and a liar, you can give me no counsel in war. You can give me no counsel, because the counsel of a coward is a slave. You just predetermined, because you've already done a cost-benefit analysis. See, what people don't talk about in politics is the cost-benefit analysis. What does it cost me to get what I want? So some things cost your soul. It's just what it is. And whatever soul means to you, I'm not getting deep and spiritual. Whatever your soul means to you, that's what it might cost you. It could be it could cost you your integrity. It could cost you your character. It could cost you your livelihood, but it's going to cost you something. And the one thing we haven't done is taught about the cost-benefit analysis of war. When do we declare it? When do we say it's starting tomorrow? Because we have not been trained in the art of war, we are afraid of it. But we should not be afraid of it if we must understand it. And that is my concern, is that there are so many people who do not understand warfare because they don't think that warfare is warfare anymore. They think it's politics.
Right.
Clausewitz said it. War, politics is war by other means. And Frederick Douglass said it the best. He said, man's rights lie in 3 boxes. First is the ballot box, go vote. That's great. That's one of the boxes. The next is the jury box. Hey, pray that your citizens who will find you not guilty after you did whatever you did. And if those 2 boxes don't work, you go to the cartridge box. You get the 5.56 green tips, and you say, hey, let's figure this out.
Mhm.
And the challenge that we're running into is we have only told primarily Black people in America, your only recourse is the ballot box.
Yeah.
Because we know we don't get no love in the jury box.
Mhm.
And some of the first Black codes were to stop Black people from getting firearms. Because they understood if I armed the people, and that's not arm. If you notice, the word arm and army are similar, correct?
Right.
Arm and armory.
Army.
If you look at the etymology of the word army, it just means an arm.
Mhm.
But the word hand is translated to power. And see, you can have an army with no power because you ain't working it out. You're not creating resistance. See, some people like to fight. I don't know how you guys grew up. Some people like to fight. They enjoyed it. They scrapped it.
It was my pastime.
I'll let John say it.
Talk about it, bro. We'll talk about it.
But so I was a quiet kid, right? But I was also a low tolerance kid. So if I don't want to be bothered at that point in time, and just like thinking about it, I realized I was putting people in categories of what you would consider of wartime thinking, right? That is my enemy. That is my problem. I need to eliminate my enemy.
Yes.
And it was how I kind of like structured myself and realized I always gave fair warning. Hey, don't want to be bothered. Hey, leave me alone. Hey, leave my sister or leave my brothers alone. And once that don't happen, it was attack time. And when you grow up and you start to realize that you backtrack and you're trying to change some of those behaviors, right? Because now you're trying to be more tactical.
Yes.
This is the thing that can and this is from my point of view. This is the thing that can break you. Because it's not how you used to operate. And so now you have to learn the orders of operation in the process of, hey, how can I be more tactical? Okay, this person did this. Okay, well, what's the first step to escalation? And you're checking down this box before you get the escalation. And it was one of the things that mentally that helped me process a lot of stuff and really break out of ultimate violence first and so forth. But as I'm also like looking at society and how it's shaped and so forth, man, when you look at it, this is the ethos of how power is structured in society.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope I answered the question.
No, man.
No,
you got it, man. I told him. He said it the best. The idea that politics of self is what I got from you, man. And you are learning you. And when you say tactically, my first thought is that if politics is me, then that's strategic now. Because I'm strategic at me, but I'm tactical with you. Because I have the strategy with me first before I employ one with you. And I think therein lies the challenge. Like you've heard the expression, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. And what I'm learning is the idea of banners. See, and if you're a politic of yourself, every state has a flag, correct?
Yeah.
So you have a flag, I got a flag, and there used to be a game called Capture the Flag, correct? So my goal is to take your flag, and you want to take my flag. But the banner is important because it signifies who you're going to be fighting before you take that flag. Like some people, you realize, like Mike Tyson is a good example, right? People will be scared to death to fight Mike Tyson. Already had their flag before he even walked in the ring. He ain't knocked you out yet. And then we come to the question and tell you, if somebody would ask you, what would someone need to capture your flag?
What would somebody need to capture my flag?
Yes.
Shoot, they need some firearms, man. I don't know.
No, this is my point. No, but go further with that.
Yeah.
Because the flag is not a physical thing. Your flag isn't a if you read the Bible, there's a passage that says Jehovah Nisi. That means the Lord is my banner, meaning my God fights for me. He fights on my behalf. So I don't have to fight. I'm gonna let the person that's in charge of me go take care of this. Like which one of y'all's the oldest?
Yeah, it's me.
Okay. Yeah.
So you the big brother. What's the age difference?
10 months.
Man, yeah.
So y'all fighting each other.
Yeah.
Y'all fighting. Okay.
So I'll give the story time that's going to tie into what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The power dynamics between my older brother and I, because we're closer in age. So from my standpoint, he probably never knew this or whatever, but my standpoint was I always believed that I could take my older brother. Right. And we were always pretty we were always around the same size. I was a little more skinnier.
Yeah.
But far as height wise, we were always the same height kind of growing up.
Yeah.
Right. He was a little more stockier and so forth. And it was this one time, and we just moved to Delaware just a few years before, and we got into this little argument. And we was living over South Bridge, and we going back and forth and so forth, and I'm bucking up at him. Yeah, you just think you going to, and I'm going. And he's like, "Go ahead, John, go ahead." And I'm like, nah, it's gonna happen today. So, and we end up scrabbling, and he catch me, and he grabbed me, and this time he kicked me square in the nuts, man, square in the nuts. I break down, and that was it. The fight was over. It was over.
Below the belt.
Yeah, it was over. And then there was another time when we was living over on the west side of Wilmington, Delaware, on DuPont. My mom had this nice stereo that she just bought, and we got to squabbling again. We a little bit older now, and now I'm like, yeah, I'm just a few inches taller than him at this point, and I'm just like, oh yeah, it's on. And we get to shoving each other and so forth. And, I get a couple good blows in on him. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got him. He caught me. He grabbed me and picked me up and slammed me on top of my mom's stereo. And keep in mind, she loved his stereo. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, she loved his stereo. We broke this stereo all in pieces. I got my tail up and I walked away, and I never did it again.
And I know what you're saying, because this is the challenge: is that when a conqueror defeated an enemy in Rome, there used to be somebody, a chariot. They have a chariot. They go through the city as a procession. And then they would have somebody who would whisper in his ear as the chariot would go, and they would say, "You are just a man. You are just a man." Because at this time, he had the golden crown, the wreath. He's got thousands of people from the crowd yelling and chanting his name, and his ego was being inflated. But there needs to be someone there to humble you. And the humbling sometimes comes when you go up against a state that is superior to your state. So you might go to the gym and say, you know what? I need to get my state up. I need to get my state up. And I think what we are seeing happening is people are realizing, and I want to talk about the word neutrality, Because neutrality is an interesting state. Neutral people in times of aggression have chosen the oppressor. Desmond Tutu. Neutrality in times of great question, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. And you may not want to say that. And you might be wanting the king. That's your prerogative. But what I'm learning is that there are people who are afraid to fly their banner in enemy territory. That's why the Confederates still want their flag flown. Because until you put your flag down, you ain't defeated. If you can fly your banner, see, when you come to my country, in my state, you have to lower your flag beneath mine. Now keep your banner. But when I come into John State, my flag has to come down. Because if my flag is at the same height as his, I am telling him I'm coming for your state.
Equal.
Yes. Now we got to fight, but I'm humble. And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand is in their neutrality, someone is coming after you. Like you think you're being neutral, but you're not. And just because they don't talk about politics with you, they talk about it because that is their state. People only talk about politics when they feel safe. Because if politics is war, it would be dangerous for me to discuss my politics with you. It's dangerous.
Right.
In the warfare, silence is a weapon. It's a tactic. It's a stratagem that keeps people from not knowing, because there are certain people who hold ideas that you do not share, and you would not let them into your state if they were open about their ideas. Because you might find their ideas repugnant, and you don't want their repugnant ideas in your state. You don't want babies being ripped from their mothers on TV in your state. You don't want that, because there's a better way to do that in my state. There's a better way to do that. And see, what I find, and the reason that there's this conflict in war is because when there's expression that a house divided cannot stand. Because if you guys didn't find harmony in your home, one of you would have to go somewhere. It would have created a problem. And I think what has happened is, if you learn cohesive with everybody, because my state has rules to it. And one thing I will say about the European, and I think I say war in the context of European, is that they're liars. They're liars. Right? They'll write a constitution and won't follow it.
That's what's happening now.
They'll write a charter, but they know that. So I like to use game theory in these type of questions, because I think game theory is a very intrusive theory. And I think the dominant strategy in today's game is just to delay justice. Delay. Now you can't deny justice. You just get to delay it. Procedural it away. Okay, let's not charge the dude for treason, sedition. Let's just keep fighting these little courts and appellates and just keep buy me time. And so what I'm seeing happening is that the time's running out. And as people are not understanding what's happening in the polarization, and I want to kind of explain this to people in a way that is very simple to understand. And I want to start with you first, because what people don't tell you about political parties is that these are the ideas that you would die for. These are the ideas you would die to protect. That's what a party is. It's people who get together for the same intent and purposes. And if it becomes violent, they have already been predetermined. I will do violence with you. I will do violence with you because we want to see a mutual state. And we don't have to share the same color. Because if you want peace in my state, then you can come to my state. See, we don't need visas here. It's open to everybody. But there's flaming swords at the entrance. And only people who can enter are those who like the little fire. As long as you can deal with the fire, come on in. But it's for my safety and yours. Because if you come to my state, it's very different in your state.
Mhm.
And there's some customs, some courtesies, some things that I do in my state that I think will be beneficial if people practice them. Because remember, I have to tell people the rules before they come. And I
Okay.
think that's where the fundamental problem is that we wait until people violate before we correct them.
I totally agree.
And
Yeah.
it's like, no, you need to know, hey, before you come into the state of ham,
Mhm.
respectful here. My mom taught me when I come into your home, I should take my shoes off. So if I come in anybody's house, I'm already wired. Like I said, take my shoes off.
Mhm.
Because I'm entering into your state and I don't know how, regardless of what your rules are. Now you could say, hey, it's cool, man, just leave your shoes on. And I would say, you know what? Okay. Because I'm not an ideologue. I can change my state to accommodate yours, because once again, whose flag is there in the state?
Yeah.
Yours. And that's where, if I ever become obnoxious or you need me to leave your state, then you're right by the door. Have your way. And I think that's something that has been concerning, is that people have not known how to do this. And sometimes it's family members.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's people close to you who've been in your state for a long time. You thought they was gonna die at your state.
Yeah.
And then you see that transition. So I just wanted to bring that imagery into what's happening externally, internally too.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
John.
Well, I'll say, because I was talking to a gentleman, and you know, and it was a situation where we were explaining like how to deal with a task. And the gentleman was saying, well, I just think I just need to tell people what to do. Keep in mind, he is not the superior. So my response was, hey, I don't think no one needs you to tell them what to do, because you are not an authority. What they need is communication and an agreed upon of the task and duty. And again, what I was trying to tell him is, it's about collective conversation, right? You don't have to step on someone to get them to do what you need to get done as a collective. But what was happening was, our human nature kicks in for some people, and their tendency become authoritarian. And it's just a human trait that people either got one or two switches on that. They either want to control things, or they want to find how to work with someone collectively. That's something that's kind of breeded in us as children. I noticed that, you know, you can work with people to get projects done, and then others just want to do it on their own, or they want to tell somebody else what to do. That's just how we operate. So I was just telling the gentleman, I was just like, hey, I understand that this seems like what your tendency is to have control, but you are not in a position to have control. And it shocked him, because now I just took you back down a peg without even sitting back, like telling you flat out that you are not my authority, without doing all of that. Again, as we build on this conversation, me learning to be more tactical on how to conversate and talk to people and take people back down before the other side of it. And again, this is what we're seeing in society, right? That the picture is a group of people that want to control everyone's thought, everyone's movement, everyone's finances. That they want to control every aspect of everyone else's life. But we also got to remember, these people that want to control everyone else's life don't even have control of their own.
Yeah. Go ahead, Doc.
No, I was going to say, you know, when I think about the challenges that we face here historically, to understanding what's happening to us, is that we were never prepared, or we were never supposed to be prepared to know, because the number one thing you have to keep from the enslaved mind is, apart from the fact that they're even a slave, is you have to keep from the military strategy, tactics, and or ways of freeing themselves in collective action. So if you look at the Stono Rebellion, you will see that it was the drum that signified the rebellion, because the drum had syncopation. People knew what cadence meant, right? When the drum went, that means we're attacking. And see, communication and coordination is a key in warfare, and that's what Haiti found out. And the reason that the Haitians got free is because they only brought, Haiti did not bring people from other places, so they were all the same. If Tay was acting crazy in Virginia, we could send him to Mississippi, in the deep South. And see, we knew that, and so we knew that if he was a troublemaker, a rebel rouser, if he got the idea of freedom in his head, he might poison the batch. So we got to get him out of here quickly. But they couldn't do that in Haiti. There was nowhere to send them at. So they learned how to coordinate. They learned how to poison the food of their enemies, but they learned how to poison them slowly, so they didn't die quickly as to lead suspicion. All warfare is based upon deception. Anyone who will let you cook them food thinks that you are a friend, correct?
Right.
I'm not going to eat no food from somebody who I don't think is a friend.
Right.
Because in my kingdom, the quickest way to get my kingdom is to poison me. That's why the cupbearer is the most important role in the kingdom, because the person taking a drink from the king is going to be the one to die first. And see, my concern is that Black people in America have been the cup drinkers. We are here to drink the cup. And so there has been some discussion on this whole, should Black people get involved? And I will leave that to Tay. I'm gonna get Tay's opinion on this before I get into that. Should Black people be involved in what's going on in the Hispanic community in this country? And if you would enlighten us on your opinion, I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, my opinion is no, man. My opinion is no, man. There's been way too many of them, and that's outside of course, the Hispanic folk who identify as Afro, right? You know what I'm saying? But we know that there's anti-Blackness within the Hispanic, Hispanic community. So, Black people, we, whenever, after the Black men get the right to vote, they start passing laws, right? Passing laws, public schools, public water, you know what I'm saying? They started doing these things with poor white people in mind. During the Civil Rights Movement, the one thing that people don't talk about, who was also integral to the Civil Rights Movement, you know what I mean? There were small Asian communities, you know what I'm saying? And of course you had oh my gosh, I can't remember, Chavez, movement, you know what I'm saying? They weren't taught that part of their history, right? Like they're like, yes, Black people have been the main ones taking the lead, in a lot of these things, but we've also had people who was on the train with us, you know what I'm saying? The Hispanic communities, they don't see it that way, nowadays, you know what I'm saying? And of course, a lot of, most of them are Cubans. I get it. You know what I mean? Most of them are Cubans who are upset. Their grandparents were upset that that Castro was kicking them all off of Cuba because they were some of them, or many of them, benefited from the owning of of Afro Cubans. But other people need to take the lead now, you know what I mean? And then we can come and collaborate once you put in time, once you've had some battle scars, once you've once you've been in a fight and you understand and you understand whom your enemy is, you know what I mean? Because your enemy a lot of time is, your enemy a lot of times, like we learned during the civil rights movement, yes, your enemy has a face, but your enemy is the laws being written. You
Yes.
know, that is your enemy. And if you don't understand that part, it will lead you to voting for a man and getting your family deported.
Yes.
Yeah. So to your point, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is why, like, Europeans, American Europeans are now finding out that's why you got a copay, right? That's why you got a medical copay, because you, as a white person, someone that was a politician, use your whiteness to make sure that you can pay more money for your medical bills.
Yeah.
All because they didn't want black people and brown people to have access to medical.
Yeah.
And they're just now finding this stuff out.
Yeah.
And again, this is what we're talking about in the conversation about warfare.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't realize that they also was the casualty
Mm-hmm.
in the war.
First casualty is the truth.
Yeah.
The truth.
And again, their reality was bent.
Yeah.
So they never had the truth.
Mm.
So they died before black people even decided to die, because we fought first.
Yeah.
No,
they never fought.
The battle scars and the wounds, man. And I'll add this, and I'll get your thought here, Doc. Is to piggyback on what JY is saying. You know what I mean? I think that when we talk about politics is war.
Yes.
What uniform you wearing? One part of war, you have to know what uniform your opposition is wearing.
Talk about it, man. Bring it home.
You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people who they do this thing to where they're still doing this thing to where, oh no, I gotta hear both sides.
Yeah.
I really truly have to hear what huh? I don't have to hear. I know where the sounds of bullets coming from. I know which direction it's coming from. I don't have to hear what this person has got a gun pointing at me. What can they say?
Let's hear him out on why he's shooting at us.
Let's hear about why he's shooting at what?
Yeah, and you're like, excuse me?
What?
Yeah.
But there's a challenge that we're dealing with, and I think that part of the challenge is to not be short-sighted for long-sighted gains.
Mm-hmm.
I think in 1846, America fought a war with Mexico. And do you know what the primary reason for that war was?
What's that?
Enslaved people were getting to Mexico to freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mexican government said, well, once they get to Mexican soil, they're free.
Mm-hmm.
They're free. And America was like, the hell they is free. So as we know, California, Texas, Arizona, a lot of states out to Wyoming belong to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1846, when the Treaty of Guadalupe was signed, they made the Rio Grande the southern border of this country.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, this is where our house ends. So what happened to the millions of Mexicans who were already on the other side of the Rio Grande? They didn't give them citizenship.
Mm.
So when they still put that Mexican flag up there, my first thought is that, well, it didn't really welcome them home. When you put them under your banner, you didn't bring them tea and crumpets.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have an affinity, for the people who have historically helped Black people in this country.
Yeah,
because we had very few helpers.
Right.
Very few helpers. And Mexico had the first Black president in North America.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mexico has always been progressive. And yes, there is sides of the community that is colorist. I blame the Spanish for this because the Spanish brought that to them.
Mm-hmm.
Colonization.
Yeah, the Spanish brought that because the Spanish were very colorist society.
Mm-hmm.
Where the English was more of like, you're repugnant, because the Spanish would have sex with anybody. I mean, I'm not saying it derogatorily, but they didn't look at somebody who's black. I was like, oh no, they understood culturally because they had the influence from the Moors.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the Spanish people are black. They have Moorish blood in them. And they, they got that olive skin and the southern part, but they will let it alone. But the reason I bring it up is because I see our plight from the European perspective, not the African perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I put hold up, let me put a visual. Now, when I have the glasses on, I'm speaking from my European lens.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are visual learners. And so I study Europeans and how Europeans fight war, right? And so when I study how Europeans fight wars, I start studying with the ones who have been the most successful first, right? Because we'll save some time. Let's save time. Who's been the most successful at fighting in European? So Napoleon Bonaparte.
Mm-hmm.
Very easy strategy. Divide, conquer. Divide, conquer. And see, you can't fight America piecemeal. It doesn't work that way because America just adopted the divide, conquer.
Yeah. So
I do agree that black people should not be on the front lines of anything or regarding anything that we're taking a break. We're tired. Hey, and it's like, hey guys, you're the majority minority in America now. Welcome. Up until 2010, 12, we was the number 2. We're not it no more. So they're feeling what you get for being number 2. Anytime you get close to number 1, you got hey, hold up.
Hey, hold up.
Hold up. You're growing too fast. That Catholicism got you having 13 babies, and we can't catch up because we barely having 1 and 2.
Right.
If you look at the population demographic, we already are a minority in the city, in the state. White people are not the majority in California.
Right.
They're not. And they know they're not. That's why these ICE raids are on Democratic cities, because they're trying to remove the Democratic voting base out of the country. But that's a strategy of a warfare. You remove it. The Trail of Tears was no different. Andrew Jackson said, hey, Indians, Seminoles, we want your land. You got to move.
Yeah.
That's all it was. And so the Europeans have no new playbook. All right, so now we're off my European mode. And so I'll now do a hybrid idea of it, because the European understands 2 things that we are finally understanding now, that united, we cannot be defeated. They understand this. And see, I use warfare language because some people talk about white privilege in America. And that's just not good language anymore. It's a distortion. What white people have in America is called war rights. When you win a war over somebody, you get what's called the spoils of that war, correct? Spoils of war. Some call it the booty. You get the treasure. You win the war, you get the land, you get the women, you get everything. So they won this war against who? The British.
Yeah.
Because the British said if we fought for them during the American Revolution, we can get freedom.
Yeah.
So we lost a war here. Because you got to remember, see, they don't tell you how many black people fought for the British.
Yeah.
They don't tell you that.
I'm telling
It's a big number, though. The British was trying to get a slave revolt in the colonies. That's what Cornwallis was down south doing, trying to get the colonies to rise up. And that's why Washington, for a temporary period, allowed black people to re-enlist to counter that threat. It's a stratagem. So my point is that we lost a war here. And when you lose a war, there's penalties for that. One is you can be treated as a prisoner of that war, a slave. And some people use the term slave. That's fine too. But prisoner of war, I think, is more psychologically fitting. Because as a prisoner of a war, I understand that my captor has a right. Now, what I would say is this. What you see in a lot of black people, primarily black MAGA conservatives, it's deeper than Stockholm syndrome. Because the phenomenon is older than Stockholm syndrome. There are black people in this country who will die to protect white supremacy. And they will kill. Listen, this is where I want to go with this. During World War II, in Poland, you had Jewish people who helped the Nazis murder their people. Correct?
Yep.
And you will have the same thing in this country. You will have black people murdering other black people for the purpose of helping white supremacy.
Mhm.
And the reason that it happens the way it happens psychologically, systemically, we got 3 gangs, right? I'm gang A, John's gang B, and Kay's gang C, right? I own corner A. You own B and he owns C, correct?
Mhm.
Now, when B and C get together, y'all can get together and say, hey, let's take over corner A.
Mhm.
I can't take over corner A by myself, because if I try to take over corner A by myself, corner C will understand that he doesn't want corner B to have too much power over him.
Right.
Correct? So
Mhm.
as a stratagem, you two can get together, or any 2 of us can get together to isolate one from the corners.
Right.
And what you're seeing in America today is you're saying, what corner do you want to stand on? What corner? Now, the biggest majority of the voters said, I want to stand on no corner. 36% of the population said, I don't want to vote. They said, I want to be on corner. We'll call corner C the I don't care corner.
Hmm.
Now, if 36% don't vote, now on corner B, 31% voted, and corner B won, right? Won the election. And then I'm corner A, and let's say I only got 30 point something, right? Now, what I have to do is, if I'm corner B, I have to keep corner C, who don't care to vote. Now, they're still passionate there, though. Actually, corner C is more radical than probably both of the corners, because they've already given up hope on politics. They're probably ready for violence. I would say that probably the biggest component of a C who didn't vote, who already said both parties are trash. Fascism was coming on the left. Fascism was coming on the right. All the right did was speed it up.
Yes.
And they sped up a process that was coming in anyway. Because I'm hearing arguments now that people are not factoring in the concern that the people who didn't speak and A getting together to attack B. But what's happening right now is that B, the corner, is fighting each other. Because B don't want to be in the same corner no more. So you're having a lot of people who were felon supporters who bought a lie, and now they're realizing they were hoodwinked, bamboozled. I think at this point, I think it's culture and demographic wars, because all races are integrated at this point. Who is king? Oh, and so my thought process, if you guys want to take that question, I don't.
No, you go ahead, Doc. Yeah.
No, and so my thought process isn't necessarily about what corner anybody wants to stand on anymore. My concern is going to your house. All politics is where? Local. So if you got people in your house who still supporting that, that's your first issue. That's your first issue. We got to have a discussion.
Yeah.
In here, because a house divided, that goes for your personal house. And see what people.
I'm sorry there, Doc, but yeah, and I've kind of taken this stance, right? Like, like I like I know somebody that come in a barbershop and he voted for Trump. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I don't engage with the dude no more. I don't want to. You know what I mean? It's not beneficial. There's nothing beneficial about it. There's nothing that I'm gain. There's nothing, like, he really truly don't understand that he lost. Like, you know what I mean? Because you're talking about, Trump winning or what's not. So, you know what I'm saying? But you're in black spaces all the time. You know what I mean? If you are so excited about Trump Trump winning, then get out of the black spaces. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have time. Me personally, I don't have time. That's just me personally. I'm like, man.
I actually, yes, because I feel the same way. Like now, like I'll talk to them. I'll engage and see where their mind's at first. But after a while, after spinning around, chasing your tail, because that's what they do, is have a conversation that's just circling. It doesn't go up. It doesn't slowly go up. like you don't learn anything in the process. And I will go into King's comment, right? Because it's exactly what we're talking about, right? Because he's missing the whole entire point that one, you got to define, well, what is culture?
Mhm. Yeah.
What is culture?
What is culture? Who has culture?
Who has culture? Then you got to go into, all right, let's define demographics. Okay. So these words have meanings. So again, culturally, you got to understand that the reason why in southern states they take away funding for the education to keep you uneducated. But now, again, the money and the power that comes out of the South because of the uneducation and taking advantage of labor and so forth that happens in the demographics, that now someone that is controlling you looks like you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Had generations of wealth,
Mhm.
and you are just as poor as the black person, the Spanish person, and so forth. And this is where the comment, it was just half right,
Yeah.
right? Because you had to define what those two words were, which is cultural, and demographics.
And so I will tell you, when it comes to warfare, being able to communicate with language that's easily understood is important, because one of the biggest distortions is the idea that when someone tells you something of themselves that is political in a time of conflict, they usually, what you see afterwards is those who failed to anticipate. So here's a good example. There are tenets to a defense. One of them is I should be able to anticipate my enemy's action. Now, enemy, I would say this. Structurally, culturally, I'm not, was it y'all are right in better words? Okay. And so what I would say is structurally, culturally, what we are creating is uniformity or a treaty.
Mm-hmm.
So I use the idea of shortcuts in thinking. One is I don't attribute malice when ignorance will do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't assume that because someone voted for Trump that they are an evil person or they have malice in their heart.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I see self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
I see self-loathing.
Mhm.
I see proximity to whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't see the idea that, see, some of the black people who follow Trump are jockeying to be overseers on the plantation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what happened to Tim Scott? Does anybody know?
This man done disappeared.
Oh man.
Is he alive?
He done disappeared. Trump
Yeah,
done
yeah.
Because
Trump
my concern is that
program.
because all of those things that he was championing, small business initiative. Now this is something that Tay, I would like you to take over for a second.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about how resources are distributed by politics. Because I think when you go to war, you're going to war for resources.
Resources.
So talk about that real quick, because you did a good job on our last one about resource distribution. Because I think that's coming where people are realizing. Because did you see the thing with the VA? How if you're a Democrat, they want to be able to deny you from
you from
I'm like, what? I'm like, if you're sick, like, when did that become an issue? Because it's the spoils of war. And when you start to realize that the goal is to crush the other side, to withhold resources from them. If you're a Democrat, you cancel security. What? Like, why is that an issue? So if you want to check that for a second.
Yeah. Just quickly, you know what I mean? Like one of the things that I say, I remember when during the 2020 when the census was happening, and there was some Russian troll stuff going on, telling black people not to fill out the census. And I kept saying the census is connected to resources. If you don't fill out the census, the resources will go somewhere else. I kept saying that, and I kept saying it, and I kept saying it. And of course, also with the census, people didn't understand that they were changing the definition of white, who could identify as white. They added, they added North Africans. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
For Egypt and stuff.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Egyptian. Like, I seen a Moroccan. I don't think a Moroccan is. You know what I mean? I seen Egyptians. I don't know about that, but you know. But again, a lot of these fights and perusing through the Trump's big beautiful bill, if people read it, you can see where they are taking the resources away from. Right. The when Trump passed his tax cuts in 2017, the big thing was the salt is the state and local taxes. Well, what happened was he forced higher taxes on quote unquote blue states, California and New York. You know what I'm saying? So that led to people moving out of those states. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Into places where there are not resources, there's not homes, there's not jobs. You know what I'm saying? To more affordable areas. But I'll say all that. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, you know, one thing that me and JY always talk about, you know, politics is about life or death. And if they are deciding who get what resources. The
Yeah.
closing of hospitals, they're going to they're going to close hospitals in a lot of these rural red communities where they voted for this. They are closing hospitals.
That postal services, that post office getting closed, they got dropped the extra 30 miles.
Post office getting closed. I mean, like schools are being closed. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
No, I was just gonna plug in and talk local, because remember, politics is local.
Oh,
so there's a school, district 55, right? Down in one of the poorest counties in South Carolina, right? They just had to stop. So they was going to start remodeling and so forth, because our taxes went up in the area and so forth. But with all of these other tax cuts, and they started Project 2025 in South Carolina before it became federal, they just lost $13.5 million going forward in one of the poorest counties. They were already poor. There's no jobs down there.
Yeah,
they're losing population.
Yep. And unemployment is directly connected to a lot of metrics that we use to gauge data. Like the homicide rate goes up proportional to the unemployment rate. People get killed more because they're going to be resorting to more things to get resources. And I think this is the challenge that we're running into, is this idea that America is an experiment. And it has been a good run. I mean, in these last 250 years, since 1776, the actual 250-year birthday of America isn't until 2033, because 1776 was the date the Declaration of Independence was founded, not the date the country was established. So just a little different dates. So our 250th anniversary is in 2033, not this year. So, but that's a side issue. The reason that I bring this up is because America has created a problem psychologically that it cannot fix conventionally. Because the idea, and this is for Black people, and I say that because we have been psychologically not prepared to go to war, because there's the three tactics we have a problem with. One is organization, the second is training, and the third is equipment. I need all three of those to go to war. I need organization, I need training, I need equipment. If I have organization, but I don't have training and equipment, I'll be slaughtered. If I have equipment without organization and training, I will get slaughtered. You following my logic? If I miss one of, I can have two of any, but if I don't have the third one, I will be slaughtered in conflict. My thoughts have to be organized, because politics of self. My thoughts should be organized, right? I should have training. So after church on Sunday, go to the shoots and rounds, Go to the practice your proficiency at the range. Hey, you know what? The pastor should say, hey, you know what? Instead of going to church today, we're going to take our church to the range for training, right? I'm going to say, hey, instead of giving your tithes money this month, go out and get you a Smith & Wesson or Glock or AR. Because God wants you to defend yourself, and he ain't talking about melodies from heaven. Like, this is where I want to get into praxis. Because praxis is out, not theory. Theory is, we're going with theory. We need things we can do now. I need a bug out bag for my home. I need a 72-hour bag. If stuff hit the fan, and since all politics is local, if it starts to heat up where I am at, I might need to retrograde to a backup location. If stuff got hot right now, where you going? I mean, don't tell me, but these are the plans. You should have that, because when you don't have a plan, the mind gets confused. And the last thing that you want in a war is more confusion, because by definition, war means confusion. It's a confused state because somebody don't know who flag should be here right now. See, John think his flag should be at my house. I disagree with John. So I need to remove his flag from my location because it came without validation or permission. And so what I'm seeing happening, that's why on January 6, 2021, because 7 days before that happened, I actually made a post saying we need a brigade at the Capitol because it was crazy, right? Because I got receipts. I don't think I'm here just talking, out of my neck. I got receipts because I saw what was happening, because they had not changed their strategy. Voting only is a metric that they have predetermined for their violence to ensue. So I will use the Bible and some scriptures, because I know Black people know the Bible. And I feel if you tell it from the Bible, then they'll at least be like, "Whoa, here the Bible said it." The kingdom suffereth violence, and the violent take it by what? Force. Force. The kingdom, you suffereth violence, and the violent people want to take you by force. Now, the skillful people take you by persuasion, take you by competency, take you by eloquency of speech, sophistry. But the violent, and we're dealing with people in this country who are violent, and they want to take your kingdom by force. They don't want to negotiate. That's why they tore up that Iranian deal. They didn't like the fact that we tried to negotiate with Iran for peace and give them money. And when Obama was there, it's like, no, we don't do that. We use violence. Because if we start changing our violence, people might stop respecting us. And so my concern is the idea that the one thing that I think has created the biggest divide in our community from an intergenerational perspective is our elders have not prepared us for war.
Right.
They've not prepared us because they fell into a trap that progress would be perpetual. I'm having an argument with people who are 80 sometimes about how Obama was signified the changing. I'm like, no, Obama just woke up a savage. That's all that was. That wasn't progress. That was savagery. They asked Mitch McConnell, should Black people get reparations? He was like, well, they already had a Black president. They already had Obama. Like, no, this is how they think. That's yours. Be happy. Shut up. And so my concern is more on the lines of how we were taught warfare. It's not applied today. So have you ever heard the term spiritual warfare? What's that even mean? I mean, your own word. What does that mean?
I mean, to me, it's an internal, it's an internal fight against what the thing you should do versus the thing you want to do. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Fight or flight. Okay,
no. Let's take that idea and say, let's juxtapose it to natural warfare. So you already have the principle of warfare. You just don't think it should be applied naturally, correct? If it's spiritual, right? If you think there's some angels in the sky fighting each other or something, then that's different than on the ground fighting. So the reason that's important is because if you decouple warfare from physicality, you won't train the people in the natural.
I see what you're saying.
And so the Bible can be an instructive tool to teach people warfare if you understand how to use it. Because it's a liberation document, but it can be a binding document. And some of the issues that people have is this idea of let's turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
God will take vengeance for me.
Right.
They'll get theirs in heaven. Like,
Man.
don't worry. And I'm like, your enemy told you that. The dude who enslaved you told you your blessing is in heaven. Man, great strategy. That's called delayed justice.
Yeah.
If I gotta wait to heaven to get it, you can keep it.
Hey Doc. Like you sitting here going through that, literally my mind was going, right?
Yeah, sure.
So as we're watching these protests and we're talking about strategy, we're talking about, how we need to start thinking about solutions and so forth, right? This is where it's cool to have a peaceful mindset and want to do things peacefully. But I think, and I'm not a marcher. I ain't a marcher. You ain't gonna get me out there to walk no miles or whatever. Call me when the smoke comes. Like, I'm there.
Yep.
But what I think that they need to intertwine with some of these marches is the 2A.
Oh,
be safe, but the force of people with the 2A safely and with the law. That's a different power for the people.
Yes.
Yeah, and real quick, Doc, I just want to say, man, I remember this one dude was telling me, after election, he's like, yeah, man, God's going to deal with Trump. I said, you do know Jesus walked into the synagogue and turned the table over. He ain't sit outside of it. I'm like, I said, brother, this is our problem, man. We don't want to get up and do it. We don't want to go turn. Man, I was just like, you know what, brother, you got it, man. I said,
what I will say to you is this. This is the problem that we run into is we don't teach the idea that a smaller force can defeat a larger force if the smaller force is organized, trained, and equipped. You give me a squad that's organized, trained, and equipped, and I could take out a battalion. If all I did was that. You know why? Because big things move slowly. Big states take time. Small states can move quickly. What I see happening is the urgency is coming from necessity. So in my state of Ohio, we've had white supremacists marching on our streets. And do you know what the neighborhoods, these communities did? They started to organize. And they started to take armed patrols around their neighborhood. Now, the reason they didn't want to do armed patrols around their neighborhood, but there was a necessity because all politics is where? Local. And so they said we need to arm ourselves because we don't want y'all thinking you could just come into our area unannounced in our kingdom, our community, without repercussions. And what we're finding out here is that because it's necessity, now we did see those two Democratic politicians get murdered in their home, correct? And the other two got shot in Minneapolis, right?
Right.
Now we do know this was a radical white right-wing MAGA preacher pastor who was essentially believing he was doing some kind of God's work.
God's work,
Now I will tell you this, and we've talked about this before, me and you, Tay. I told you, I think that Christianity in America operates as a sleeper cell. A sleeper cell. because they're the people who always talk about peace, but they're the most murderous over the world and throughout history. Christians, followers of Christ, have murdered more people than plagues.
Man, y'all saw what Ted Cruz said.
Bro, these people are listen.
We have to
Listen,
do it because it's
guys, there is nothing more dangerous than someone who can murder you and ask their sky dad for forgiveness. Anybody who can murder you and ask for forgiveness from a sky dad, I don't want to be around you right now. You're dangerous. You're unstable, because this concept makes you thinking murdering somebody will fix their problem. But see, debate me. Now, the word debate means to go to war. See, we thought debate meant to exchange ideas. It's not what it meant. The word debate meant to quarrel. It meant to exchange blows. We've only changed it into words because we are more gentlemen. Gentlemen. But see, inside the gentleman, there is a savage. And this country is waking up the savage. In the military, we need this time in the military. And I learned maybe about like 2007 during the surge, we were like, we need to work on the hearts and minds of the people. I know we just bombed you up and destroyed your village, but here's a couple bucks, et cetera. And what we forgot is that in warfare, you don't recuperate somebody for the damage to their property. It's called collateral damage. We move. Your goat got killed. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
Sorry, your goat got killed, bro. That's unfortunate. We moving on me. So getting back to that, no, this is warfare. There are no rules in war. That is distortion. The law of war, rules of war, that's a lie. They don't believe that. They wrote that on paper for other people. See, what I've learned is the people who write stuff on paper for other people care nothing. Got nothing. And so the idea, what the comment say?
Said
you got the title backwards.
What's the title? Politics. No, so it's semantics. See, and this is see, my idea is that let's become etymologists for a second. Let's go to etymology. And see, I want to start with the origin of the word. If the word is Latin, let's talk about what the Latin was. The word was Greek, let's talk about Greek. What's the origin of the word politic? And what's the origin of the word war? And do they come from the same culture? Because warfare over time has changed. They didn't have psychological warfare back in the day, but Sun Tzu did. Sun Tzu knew psychological warfare before he had a book on it, because he said if you ever back your enemy into a corner, they're going to fight you harder. And what America has done is always been careful not to back you too far into the corner. They've always been careful of that. And so the challenge of politics being war, it's a distortion because it's by other means. It's when we can no longer see eye to eye, we must go toe to toe. And so part of the distortion that I think we're seeing is this idea that the people who want to fight the most, the people who are ready to go to war the most, are the ones who are the most peaceful. The ones who are, listen, nobody trains for war. Yes, nobody trains for war for the sole purpose of just training. See, what you find is you can train so effectively for war, your adversary don't even want to fight you. I'd be security forces, right? I used to work at the gate, and they had your beret on with your boots and your stuff clean. They said, look, man, if you look sharp at that gate, the bad guy won't even think about coming this way, because he's gonna be like, that nobody who looks that sharp ain't ready to fight. And so the perception is that those who are most prepared for warfare don't want to, because I'll use the Powell doctrine, and it says if I have to go to war, we'll use overwhelming force. And I'll use what Machiavelli said. He said if an injury must be done to a man, it should be so severe you don't even fear retaliation. So they don't just kill the king, they kill his children too, because his kids will grow up to revenge the father. So you have to understand that in England, I'll put my European glasses on. The English and the French fought a war for 100 years. It was actually called the 100 Years' War.
Mhm.
Now, do you know what you have to do to fight a war for 100 years? You have to raise children who don't even know their enemy to hate people they don't even know yet,
Mm.
because they got to grow up to fight in the 100 Years' War.
Mhm.
So we've had a 250-year war plus after slavery, because we haven't conceptualized the idea that you are a prisoner here. You
Mhm.
didn't ask to come. You were brought here in bondage.
Mhm.
Now, most of the slave trade, let's look at slavery, because this is this argument that people make about warfare and slavery, that yes, if you lose the war, historically, your people were enslaved. That's not a new phenomenon. But what didn't happen is you could stay where you was at.
Mhm.
So if you won a tribe in Africa, I was in Africa. And what made it so hard for us to fight war here, we didn't know the terrain.
Mhm.
We didn't know the enemy. We didn't
Right.
know anything. And so now what we're saying is identify yourself.
Mhm.
State your purpose.
Mhm.
So where are you here? Because in times of war, communicating with the enemy is called what? Or giving aid and comfort to your enemy is what? If I help my enemy in time of war, that's called treason.
Yeah, that's treason.
Oh, okay.
Treason.
Yeah.
If I help my enemy, that's aiding his cause, I have become disloyal to my flag, to my banner.
Mhm.
Where is this challenge today is when you see the American flag, what's your first thought of it when you see it?
War.
Yeah. Do you think of a peace?
No.
No.
Civil
Under
war.
that banner, there's war.
It's just war.
It's war.
War,
And
man.
it's perpetual war. America has been in a state of war every year, except for like 3 in its history or something. Like, it's some ridiculous number.
Yeah.
We're always in some war somewhere. But what we've done is we've been able to shield the populace from what we do overseas. And people realize we're not liked. People hate us because we have become the big brother on the block who says, do as I say, or we're going to bomb you.
Mhm.
And to me, as a stratagem, it's not effective because you cannot bomb your way to peace.
Mhm.
It doesn't exist. Because if you have to build your heaven on the graveyard of dead children, it'll be hell for you. Because you will have no peace there. Because the people who you kill will grow up. And they're going to want to understand what happened to my people. And so I think that becomes a challenge when we start to understand and break down the idea that warfare is not something I say, I declare war.
Right.
Because that your enemy, if he's smart, wouldn't tell you he was at war with you. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Why don't I just go to war? Don't tell him I want to like it's like me coming to John's house, really wanting to steal it from him, but acting like I'm a guest. It's like, no, John needs some procedures in place to, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Well, to your point, that's where the politeness of politics will come in before you even understood it was war.
Yes.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
precursor.
The
The
precursor.
harbinger.
The
It preceded it. And
Yes.
therein lies our challenge. By the time you figure out you're at war, it's too late.
Yeah.
You didn't realize.
Mm.
Because I ain't gonna lie, the parallels between us and Nazi Germany, I just can't be ignored.
It's crazy.
I'm just waiting for the night of long knives.
Yeah, man.
Because what that guy who went in Minnesota, he had other targets.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And because so you said his name, I don't say his name anymore because I won't give him that energy.
I
But
got you.
what I see happening, he said that he wanted a purge. I don't know if y'all remember that. I don't know if y'all remember that. He said he wanted a purge. He used the word purge.
Mm.
And see, he knows in order to get the purge, he says this. This is Voltaire. Anyone who can make you believe an absurdity can make you commit an atrocity.
Yep.
So when he said that they were eating cats and dogs,
Yeah.
and you know how these Europeans feel about they damn dogs.
Yeah.
They love them dogs more than people.
Mm-hmm.
So when they said they was eating them dogs, they was like, get them all out of here.
Mm-hmm.
They saw their dog getting eaten because all politics is local, and they came next to me, they said their dog get eaten. But when white South Africaners came here and they made up a lie that they were being genocided.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is, it's like, okay, you ain't gonna just act like we gonna play my face.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I would tell you is this: I don't know anybody who goes to war and doesn't want intel from their enemy. I've never heard of that. Who goes to war and say, "Hey, enemy, what's you up to today?" Now, let me tell you how good I want my plan to be. Now, I'll share this with you all because I want you to know. I want my plan to be so effective that I have to teach my enemy how to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, the plan is so good, I want my enemy to study it because he is the only one that can perfect it for me. I need to do some work for me. Here's a plan I'm working on. But see, he's gonna be up all night reading my plans, right? I won't be asleep. I'm gonna wake up and execute my plan. But in my plan, I already had him to be up all night reading my plan. So the next day when I execute my plan, he's already tired. He ain't ready to fight because he ain't got no sleep last night. He ain't in his right mind. And see, the dominant strategy is I win no matter what I do.
Steve Bannon, flood the zone.
Flood the zone. Flood the zone. Hyper normalization is what we're seeing now. We are creating a situation where if federal agents in mass can abduct you off the street, I would submit to you all that that is dangerous. I ask people, what would happen in America if habeas corpus was ended and suspended and the Insurrection Act enabled? Do you all know why the Insurrection Act was passed?
Which one?
The Insurrection Act.
In which one?
1807. 1807.
No.
Thomas Jefferson signed the Insurrection Act into law in 1807 as the last day of his presidency. Right out the door. Because the following year, in 1808, the slave trade ended. And there was fears that when the trade ended, there would be rebellion in the South. The southern states would rebel from the Union when they ended the slave trade. But they made a compromise. They said, well, we, as the president, can take over the state's militia if they don't want to participate. So when them northern states don't want to come out here and help us, we can federalize their troops and send them down there. That was their solution. So from its inception to today, it's always been this idea that the only way we can hold this government together is by the suppression of non-Europeans in this country. So we're deporting, removing non-Europeans, and we're bringing in Europeans. Because I tell people all the time, the attack on critical race theory was a warfare strategy because they had no strategy to stop it. And the strategy that they started to employ was called the Great Replacement Theory. They start telling white people in America, you're being replaced. That's all they need to say. And homosexuals and trans people are going to molest your children in bathrooms. Because conservatives want the institution over principles. So they end up getting corrupt institutions and unprincipled people by default.
No, I agree. Bro, I wouldn't have banned my man comment. But that's me. You know what I'm saying? Because after a while, you got to allow Gary. He was going off in the comment.
Yeah, I just put him in timeout.
But it wasn't nothing harmful or nothing like that. But you know, he just got to a point where he was just like, well, what the F we gonna do about it and so forth.
About what?
In the conversation, everything that we were talking about, he was just asking what we're going to do about it. But the reason why, you know, I personally don't get into the whole censor thing is simply because everything that we're talking about, sometimes you need people to say things outward and loud so you can know. And it's important, even when it's irrational.
Mhm.
Because again, these are avenues that we have been traveling for over 45 years, where we're trying to become a polite society, and like nobody talks about anything real. Nobody like and it wasn't healthy.
Mhm.
And that's what actually led us to this place today.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what you said, my concern isn't like I told you, I'm pragmatic now. So my concern is come to the table with solutions or stay on the sideline with criticism.
Mhm.
The first step in any process is to educate and inform. Agreed?
I
Yeah.
agree.
Educate and inform. The word idea etymologically means to see. Is that fair? So if
Yeah.
I go back and look at the origin of the word idea, it means to see, like vision.
Mhm.
So if somebody is blind, it doesn't mean they can't see. It means they lack an idea.
Mhm.
We are giving ideas tonight. I gave many ideas about churches. I think every church in America that's Black predominantly should essentially turn your church into a training camp for warfare by arming yourself, equipping yourself, training yourself, PTing. Instead of Wednesday night Bible study, y'all gonna go for the church going for a run to get it. That's a strategy.
Mhm.
Every church in America right now, go do that. If you can't do it, get some people from that church. Find people in your community, in your politic that is local, who if the S hit, if the defecation hit the rotating oscillation, they can fight with you when the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
So get people, get 15 to 20 people in your community who own and know how to operate firearms. So in the event that something happens, you can make 3 calls and they're there in 2 hours.
Mhm.
I man, this is where I 100% agree, because I think the church, especially for African Americans, should be and I'm going to talk about the mosque as well. Like, because 20% of African Americans are Muslims in the United States. And I think it's upwards of 23-24% now. But gotta understand that they should be operating like a bank. They should be operating like an investment firm. They should be operating as a defense firm. They should be operating as a security firm. They should be operating with all of these different tenets.
Yes. And on the first part of the church, and I say that if you go to a church, that's one thing. Because see, there is no panacea. See, I think people want some magical egg you can just drop in their lap so they don't have to do no work. The comments sound lazy to me. Like, do some thinking and then share those thoughts with us about what we should do.
Yeah.
Do some thinking first. Try it out. Now it's scary. It can be dangerous to think because you might lead you into an isolated place where you don't have any solutions. And then you bring your thoughts to somebody who can refine them.
Mhm.
You say, hey, Tay, great idea. You know, economic literacy is a very important thing in our community because for warfare, you need resources. And here are some tips to how to get some economic resources for your community. Okay, cool. Thanks. Now listen. Have you seen this book before?
Oh no.
Maybe still bugging.
Man, listen, this is one of the best books I've ever seen on how to prepare your home, yourself for what's coming in this country. It gives you things to do with martial laws declared, things to do for water storage, how to food prep, how to turn a generator, how to make a refrigerator powered with no generator. You know, it gives you tools. And you go through it. What's the best weapons for home defense? What's the best weapon if people come to your home in a crisis asking for food? What would be the best strategy to use? See what I'm saying? These are things you need to know. So we're here to provide information and resources to people to understand that first off, you're at a war. And I think that's why I said it's you first. And if you don't get the wars with you, you may not see it's coming. Because you might want to be an ostrich and put your head in the sand and say it ain't coming to my neighborhood.
Yeah.
It won't happen to me. But guess what? It's coming to your neighborhood. It's coming to everybody's neighborhood because our silence is speaking volumes. Because you got a lot of people who know that they're on the wrong side. They know, man, that this ain't right. They know it's not right. But what they found out is once you join a gang, blood in, blood out. Gang.
As Herman Cain.
Yeah, man.
Blood in. And see, and the problem is that the white supremacists are running into, they're running out of black puppets to tout out in front of us and tell us everything's gonna be okay. They ain't got no more. They ain't got no more. They run out of their pup. I think Tim Scott maybe in their last one. I don't know. Or Byron Donalds or
Nah, they ain't using Tim Scott no more because he couldn't get the votes.
Yep.
For black folk that they ain't using no more. It's Byron Donalds. He the last tap. Well no, you got the guy from HUD. They may give him a position increase after this. After if you listen to his hearing. If you listen to his hearing, you'll say like, oh yeah, he got Byron Donalds in them beat. He got them beat.
They're going
because he knows the information. Byron Donalds do not know the information, so he's winging it every conversation.
Yeah,
he's just winging it.
He's just winging it, man.
And in fairness, the administration is winging it.
Well, yeah.
I think what is happening
man.
We are reaching an inflection point. I think January 6, 2021 was the Rubicon that was crossed. We can't go back anymore. There is no going back. I think that's the problem. I think there's a nativism and this idealism that, like, now that I've seen your true colors, you can't come back in my house anymore because you defecated on my home. On January 6th, that's my house. My people built that building that you defecated in.
Right.
And when you defecate in my home, I'm going to revoke, block, whatever I need to do to stop you from doing it again. Because I know when people who like to shit places have uncontrollable urge to shit other places, it's the law of diminishing return, and they want to shit everywhere. And see, my concern isn't that they want to shit somewhere. Do that. You ain't gonna do it in my presence. Because let me tell you, I don't just block people anymore. See, that's easy. My concern now is, why do you want to be a distraction right now?
Right.
Before, because that's a strategy. These are distractions. That dude, that's a distraction. Which is distraction? Distracting me. Like when the general is planning the battle and the strategy, the private shuts up. Correct? Know your role. If you ain't lead, follow, or get out the way, pick one. Lead me, follow me somewhere, or get out the way.
Man.
Get out the way. Or if you're that concerned, start leading yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what they telling Chuck Schumer right now. If you don't want to lead, get out the way.
Let somebody
get out the way.
But the thing is that they can't get out the way because they have not understood that. I'm not trying to tell people that if you can't pick one. What I'm saying is that don't be a distraction. When if I go to a meeting and that meeting is talking about Alcohol Anonymous, I'm not going to talk about my cocaine problem. They have different meetings to talk about cocaine problems. This, we're talking about alcohol and anonymous. So if you want to talk about sports right now, this ain't the time for that. We're talking about warfare. If you want to talk about war, let's go. But if you don't want to talk about warfare and the politics of it, you're being a distraction. And that's okay. You may not know how to be a distraction because the enemy who sent you wants you to be a distraction. Because you were sent by an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
An enemy sent you. And let me tell you one thing, I don't care that the enemy sent you, because I want to understand what your concerns are. And if your concern is a plan, then I will tell you, I don't tell it to the enemy. What? Seriously. And I think the concern for so many is this idea of a hydra, that there is going to be no more black leadership in this country. I hate to say that, or at least on a national level. There won't be any more national black leaders, because it won't be necessary anymore. Because any black person who gets a national platform in this moment is a distortion. Any black person from any party is a distortion, because the concern that we're running into isn't about leadership anymore. The concern that we're getting into is, do you know how to lead in war? And these politicians we have today, most of them have not been to a war zone.
Yeah.
And they have not understood that it's going to be dangerous to get involved in politics if you are not prepared psychologically for someone wanting to take your life for a belief that you have that other people should have equality. Yes, there are people who want to murder you from that reason. And if you don't understand that, then that ain't the field for you. And so what we're seeing is this idea of a dividing of people being neutral. And then they're saying to themselves, hey, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing that happened in Germany. I'm going to hope for the best. And I will tell you all this. I think hope is a great idea. But in warfare, it's a doomed strategy. No one goes to the battlefield hoping that the backup arrives. No, I need you at 3. You ain't here at 3, we can't go. And so what we are seeing today is this coordination. And I do encourage those out there to essentially engage. I'm not talking about physically engage. I'm talking about engage in 2 things in this time. And one is the Socratic method, asking questions and examining yourself.
Right.
Ask questions. Don't comply in advance. Ask a question, but word it correctly so you can get a genuine response. And then one thing, because this is European, I study European philosophers, it's Hegelian dialectic. I'm talking to you to understand what you are saying to me first, not to prove a point to you.
Yeah.
And if I do that in the Socratic method, not only will we create a deeper bond and meaning, you might say, hey, listen, I'm not concerned about what you believe personally, because, hey, there was times like, and I'll be candid and transparent. I said, look, when I was in the military, I voted for Bush twice because he was giving us tax cuts and he was giving us pay raises. Remember, every year from 3 to 4, right? And so my self-interest, and so in the self-interest, it's like, let's vote for the person who give you a pay raise, because I wasn't knowledgeable. I hadn't taken the time to read no books. I hadn't taken the time to do nothing because I ain't had time for that. It was just everybody else is doing it. We're in the military, we're Republicans, and we listen to Fox News all day. This is before he got crazy. But I say that because we find a lot of Black conservatives are confused right now because they don't have a party. They don't have a party anymore. They don't have a party anymore. They are now just a small fraction of a fascist party, but they still hold conservative beliefs. And one thing is, what could come out of this is a new political party of the disaffected, the 36% that didn't vote, Republicans who are not MAGA because they're out there, and the Democrats who think that the Democrats are just authoritarian as Republicans in slow motion. If those 3 factions got together, you got 50+% of the electorate. There, 50%. And that's not counting the number of conservatives who tend to be older who will be dying in the next couple of years. Because their death rates are accelerating their birth rates. And they're dying quicker than they're being born. And that, from a strategy perspective, it becomes tribalistic. it becomes now interdependent on not color anymore. And that's the confusion to people, because they think that it's the population that gives them the control. It's not. 7% of white people in South Africa were white, and the other 93% were black. So black people are the majority of the population, but they don't have no power.
No power.
Because the 7% own the resources. They own all the land, all the diamond mines. And we've been concerned, and I will say this, and the last thing I will say is that we have been concerned with materialism as a distraction and distortion. I saw a pair of jeans the other day that cost $15,000 because they had some like hearts on them or something, some kind of like whatever these jeans were. And I keep thinking, how much more dumb shit they're gonna make for, because only black people buy this stuff. How much more dumb shit they're gonna make for us to buy so we can be distracted. And I think I think the reason that they're wanting to fight is because they ran out of dumb shit we can buy that we don't need to prop up our enemies.
Right.
Because when you give the money to the people who cost $15,000, they ain't using that for your community.
Yeah,
We're using that money to get more stock in BlackRock so they can buy your home for you, for their corporation, and rent it back to you.
So I have a different perspective.
Share.
Like being an investor, like what you said, what I experienced is right, but what I'm thinking is the investor class, the money class, they're now running out of consumers, because now black people in the last 4 years have been the majority business starters in the United States.
Yes.
So now we're buying
black women.
Well, black women, but black men were not far behind in comparison to other groups.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, we are now moving into a asset class.
Yeah.
And so now when you're battling for the resources in the asset class, and you're watching another population decrease in numbers, which are the Europeans, white European Americans, and also, Chinese has pretty much stayed level. Everybody else pretty much stayed level. I think that is where the battle is, to basically knock us down a few pegs. You talking about the most educated, like black boys now are enrolled in college at the same level as young white men. Like all of these things just started to happen, and I think like now what's happening is they're trying to knock us back down.
Oh yeah, DEI.
Yeah. All of that.
Attacking our museums.
Yeah, the Fearless Fund, getting rid of Fearless Fund.
And one of the things that I'm learning about DEI is just another way to say white only. It's another way of politely saying white only, because if diversity has ever been a weakness here, I would say that universally it's dumb to think that we're not trying to create more harmony. But the concern isn't that, it's how many people are going to benefit at the same time. Because my concern is there's a threshold that the United Nations has already created. They said when it takes 40% of your income to feed yourself, there will be social unrest in your country. Food prices continue to rise. This asset class who has assets are building bunkers. They're moving out of the country. They're already protecting their wealth, or they're hedging their bets by bowing down to Trump. And I say that because what we're seeing happening is the cuckolding. The party has been cuckolded, and they have been emasculated because the legislature historically does not like to make controversial decisions. 1913, they gave their power over to the Federal Reserve Act because they have the power to coin money. They gave it over to the Federal Reserve. In 1970s, they gave over the War Powers Act to declare war, which was their sole constitutional function. But they said the president in emergency can wage war for 3 hours. Well, I would submit to you all, if we need to go to war, wake somebody up.
Yeah.
I can do a roll call vote. And I would say this, and this is the politics is war part. In 1929, the House of Representatives was capped at 435 members. This was a strategic reason, and it was done because of racism. At that time, the country was growing at such a large number that if we kept up with the population growth as today, we'd have 10,000 representatives, and they understand that is going to be a problem. And so they need to hedge their bets. But what is happening is they are no longer able to gerrymander their way to victory.
Right.
20,000 black folk here and 10 here. No, they can't do it anymore. And so now they need to go back to violence. That's what I want. If there's no takeaway from this, but they need violence because their predetermined metrics have indicated to them it is time to be violent again. And all they have to do now is continue to wake up their savage, removing censors from social media, showing graphic videos, unlimited access to violence, has created a situation when he pardoned that Navy SEAL, that war criminal, he was so bad his own unit members had to take his gun from him. He was literally massacring folks. This is what they want. That is what they want. When that dude choked out Daniel on a subway, the black man having a mental health crisis, and he got convicted and they invited him to a football game. This is what they want, because you give praise and honor to the behavior. So in Charlottesville, there's good people on both sides. They're created a distortion, and all they need now is for their white MAGA fanatics to go out there and murder in their name so they can have stochastic terrorism and then look around and not say nothing about it. They asked, was he going to call Waltz and give condolences? And I'm like, no, he's a narcissist. They don't care about anybody but themselves. And in your country where politicians are being killed, you think that the chief executive would have some other things going on. But once again, politics is war, and you don't indict your war mates. The same reason the police don't tell on each other. In polite society, we normally would have cheered Joe Biden on as he was doing that in practice, right? But the problem was Joe Biden didn't understand the times have changed. The people that he was dealing with were not the same.
They're not the same, man. I seen, I watched The View from time to time, and Sonny Hostin made this point. She said the Democrats, namely Pelosi and Schumer, but the Democrats are trying to play by a playbook that doesn't exist. You're playing by, but it doesn't exist anymore. It's out the window.
So to be honest, let's be honest, man. The Democratic Party in America operates as the controlled opposition. It's Coke and Pepsi, a duopoly. Lenin said that the best way to control your opposition is to lead it. The best way to control your oppositionary party is to lead it. Politicians are pawns. The asset class billionaire donates the same money to Democrats that they do to Republicans. It's a crypto currency type thing where everybody can get paid with no strings. And it's a corporatism that's coming up out of it. It's a corporate fascism of corporations wanting outplaced power to be individuals and entities. And we're seeing this evolution of argumenting where the future will be AI arguing with other AI to see who has the best AI. And what we're doing is we're putting ideas into the atmosphere. Anytime you put an idea into an atmosphere, you have to be mindful that there are ideas that are counteracting it at the same time. Because once you become an ideologue, you stop hearing.
Mhm.
Ideologues don't hear anything. The ideas speak for them. And so this idea of you got to pray for your leaders, because the Bible said pray for those who despitefully use you. I was like, no, bro. No. That's no. That's what your enemy taught you.
Mhm.
Your enemy taught to while he putting you in the gas chamber to pray for him. That's foolishness. While he is taking your SNAP benefits, pray for him. While he's taking your health care benefits, pray for him. No, I'm talking about PREY, not PRAY. You are PRAY praying, and they are PREY praying. And see, if they are PREY and you're PRAY, while you're praying, listen, I will never pray with my eyes closed again. You know why? Because when your eyes are closed, they can steal your stuff. No, I'm praying my eyes open. It don't matter the difference. If prayer works with my eyes closed or open, I'm praying the same stuff because I'm watching you while I'm praying. I'm gonna have to alter that prayer in real time. Lord, give me the strength. But I say that to say that this fight that we're coming across in this country, the idea of separation in church and state is a lie and a distortion. You cannot separate church from state. That's a lie. History is replete of histories of societies that tried to do that. It fails. It fails every time because the largest sleeper cell in this country are being told that their rights are in jeopardy. Those radical left lunatics want to do something dangerous to you. And fear mongering is so interesting because you would think that we would be prepared for it by now. You would think we evolved enough to say, you know what, man, listen. All right, you told me there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. It wasn't. Now you tell me that, like what? Like, no. How many times you get to lie to me before I say, wait a minute, he might be a liar? No, you don't get no more chances. Because I will tell you this, I have fought for this country's foreign policy. And I've been in areas where I don't want to be. And I will tell you that what I found out is that there is more stress and trauma associated with fighting on someone else's land than your own. Because if I come to take your place violently, I don't know what you had in store for me. Because what I lost is just war theory, meaning we only go to war for peaceful purposes or to protect ourselves. We don't go to war to take. And I think what's happening today is we see a war of taking, and they're taking ideas first, people's faculty, and they can't say, hey, look, we're in trouble. And if we acknowledge that we're in trouble, we might have to come up with some solutions. I might have to call my representative and say, hey, guys, if 3 people call a politician, that's why they're not doing those town halls no more. You notice what happened? The Republicans were doing town halls, and their people were getting upset and getting thrown out. People really want to understand that, hey, you told me one thing, and now I'm seeing something different. And they don't have the wherewithal to be able to stand on what they said and say, you know what, I support this, because they're cowards and they're not built for this moment. And I think that these next generation of politicians are going to have to understand that, and they're going to have to realize that you're going into a toxic environment where you're probably going to be more effective on the outside of it, because once they put the letter on you, D or R, you're typecast. And I think that's where we really have to go. And if y'all want to create a political party tonight, we can. But like, all you need is an idea. And what I find is that when you have an idea, nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Victor Hugo. And I think that the time has come that not only are we understanding that politics is war, but we're also getting to a point where we're understanding that proper planning will prevent any performance that be piss poor. And we're going to see people wanting answers from those who have been to war. Because they're the only ones that's going to have peace in their mind when chaos is all around.
On that note.
Yes.
Mhm.
On that note, man, we
Yeah,
going.
I know it.
Yeah.
I know we go a little
No.
longer, man. It's been a minute.
Yeah,
I,
it's
Yeah,
been,
yeah,
been a
yeah.
minute. We got to save some, man. We got to save some. But appreciate you as always, Doc, for coming out, man. JY,
Definitely.
last words, bro.
Man, yeah. Man, I think we said it all in this
hey,
whole conversation, man, because the title says it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Politics is war, man. Prepare yourself.
Prepare
prepare
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah,
Prepare yourself.
Prepare yourself.
Prepare your family. Prepare yourself.
yeah,
Because this will probably get ugly before it get better.
Yes.
yeah, yes.
Thank
Especially
you.
as we go
Yeah.
close to the midterms. Oh,
Yeah.
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 Things are gonna get
Because what we're watching is actually a dying party.
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just not one party.
Mm-hmm.
So we're watching the Republicans, like the old school Republicans, die out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so now we're getting and I'm going to repeat the words that they say in their own party. We are not Republicans, we're MAGA.
MAGA. That's it.
So now you're dealing with MAGA. You're not dealing with a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Democratic Party, which they are struggling a little bit more, their fight right now is the conservatives, the centrists
Who are
Yes.
in the party,
who are the true conservatives?
who are the true conservatives, because they are holding the party back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So this is the changes that are happening, and we have to prepare ourselves and
Yes.
choose wisely
Thank you.
for a betterment of life, not just your own.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I ain't got nothing to add, man. You guys added it, man.
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks. But I want to also say thanks for inviting me over, man. I said thanks for inviting me over because I always feel kindredness here, man.
Mhm.
I do appreciate y'all. I love y'all dynamic. I love how you guys are always preparing. And to any commenter, I would say that if we do a show on, to your point, on preparing for tomorrow for what's next, then
Mhm.
that will be the subject to talk about those ideas.
Yeah.
See,
Right.
on that preparation context, we can do that. And so I do appreciate you guys for keeping the focus and for allowing us to share in a productive and constructive way.
Yeah. As always, man. Until next time, Doc.
Yes, sir.
Like you're saying, man, this is, I think that, we're in a time to where, look, man, you do what you can where you can. You know what I'm saying? I think that this is our moment. We're doing what we can where we can. Of course,
Yep.
we can do other things too. So this is only
Yes.
it's only a piece of it. You know what I mean? It's like voting. Voting is only a piece of the part of war. you gotta
Mhm.
do the other parts. You gotta do the other parts to win that war. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so that, man. Yeah, man. With that, man, we appreciate everybody that tuned in, everybody that commented, man. Appreciate you. And for sure, we're gonna keep this show rolling this year, man. All right, man. We out.
Ashe.
Dang, Doc left.